Welcome, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. Welcome to 2026. I have some really fun things to cover today. I'm going to make it as valuable and interesting for you as possible. And I'm maybe going to challenge you a bit so that maybe when you leave this session, you could apply some of these new tips and tricks in your day-to-day work life. All right. So what we'll cover is a little bit about cybersecurity, kind of explain the basics of it. Why are we having an access crisis? What does this threat landscape look like right now and over the last year? And we'll talk about AI and you, because obviously that is a massive change over this last year. Then we'll talk about workplace best practices, things that you can implement after today's session somewhat immediately and really with very little resources so you can be a little bit more secure and increase your cyber hygiene. So I have a question for you first before we dive into today's session. And Matt's going to put up a poll, and it's going to be, what AI tools do you use every week? You all come from different size organizations, you have different size of teams, you have different mandates, you different services, but I just want to know what tool you're using right now in your work environment, not personal, just work. So let Matt launch that. And then today, while he's launching that poll, I just want to be able to say, let's have a couple hats on today. Let's have our personal hat on of like, how do you interact digitally with your online world personally? And then professionally, how do you interact with your online world, with your work and the software you're using and all of the other applications that you use to be able to do your work effectively? And then when you're thinking about that, obviously, all of these things where you're maybe not at your desk, maybe you're at home, maybe you're working while you're traveling, maybe you have a remote office. You have all different sorts of scenarios here, and we want to keep in mind that these topics that we'll cover are going to cover both of them. So, when I talk about cybersecurity, you can't just say, oh, it's only at the workplace. This is only applicable at the workplace. To truth be told, it's applicable to anything that you're touching digitally. Okay, literally anything. So if you can keep that in mind, that will really help you kind of understand how this is kind of a domino effect in everything you do and how important it is by paying attention to everything you do every day when you touch something digitally. Now, maybe Matt is having some challenges getting the poll up. So I'll come back to it. That's okay. So we'll come back to that in a minute because it looks like Matt is just struggling with something. So what I want to start with is, a lot of people are not really understanding the concepts of cybersecurity. And I get it. I've been in cybersecurity since 2008. I've worked with federal agencies. They've really focused on critical infrastructure, the big picture, how to protect their state, how to protect the country. But what we've found over the years, it's actually really truthfully about you. Unfortunately, the cyber criminals have really figured out how to exploit the trust, the technology, and emotion to craft scams that evolve so much faster than companies or government can keep up with. So you have a lot of back-end security that you have in place at your company, possibly. Maybe you use smart Dolphins to do some of that security. But what the truth of the matter is it doesn't just stop there with just the technology that you use to secure your company. It also is you. And so what we're finding is through all of the kind of the fog and the confusion of what cybersecurity is, I just want you to kind of bring it down with me to thinking about you. It is about you today. And if you can bring it down to that, it'll really simplify the complexities of what cybersecurity is, what they're doing, how they're doing it, when they're doing it, where they're doing it, all of the mumbo jumbo that comes around it, because this is a very complicated industry. And we call it a cyber crime industry because it's so sophisticated. So first of all, what we do know is we know what they want, but do you know what they want? So I will break it down to the simplest thing for you, and that is they want your confidential data. Okay, so now you're going to go, well, maybe I don't handle confidential data. Maybe I'm not necessarily a target because I don't handle very much. I do this job. So basically, it is important for you to know that probably everything you do at some point in time in your day, you're touching data every day, high value pieces of data. So if you can come with me and try this, just to look this up for me, some of you may not know, but if you could just do a side Google search and look up what PII is. PII. We call it personally identifiable information, but I want you to tell me what it is. So if you do a Google search, once you find what PII is, I want you to put it in the chat. And when you put it in the chat, I want you to think about what it is that you interact with in a given day or week of all those items that's listed as PII. Okay, I'll give everyone a couple minutes or a couple seconds to do that. You're gonna have to be speedy in your search.
Sonia,
And it's called
sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
did, while we're waiting for that, I did launch that what AI tools do you use every week poll, and we did get some answers. Would you want me to save those for later or tackle those now?
Why don't we go over the AI tools while everyone's looking for the PII answer? So yes, go ahead.
Great. Yeah, so the answers are ChatGPT. I think we're going to get a lot of these. None, Copilot, Motion App, and Gemini.
Yes.
I don't use AI tools at work.
Okay.
Copilot, Grok, Copilot, Canva. There's some AI tools in there for sure. Copilot, PDF AI tools.
Yes.
None yet. Claude, Copilot at work, ChatGPT at home. Currently none. ChatGPT, none at work. ChatGPT, currently none. Currently none. I have not really used AI because ChatGPT keeps giving me wrong information.
Amen to that.
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah, that's everything.
Okay, great. So excellent. So some of you are really diving in, and some of you use it personally, some of you use it professionally, some of you use it just at home. So there's a big difference between the two, and so I want to dive into that today as well. But some of you have put the answers in as to what PII is, and those are awesome. Thank you for looking that up. Now I want you to think, okay, when we look at what PII is, it's basically anything that's any information connected to a specific individual that can be used to uncover still individuals' identity is one of the answers from one of our attendees. But basically, it could be your SIN number. It could be banking information, right? Date of birth, sensitive things like fingerprints. Yes, exactly. And you can have all sorts of information that are connected to whatever identifies you, right? So you might not think twice about what identifies you, but what that's the session today is what I want you to do is I want you to be aware of that now, okay? Because I think we've become a little bit flippant about what we're sharing, what we have for information. And I'm pretty much a stickler for privacy because my information is my information. How old I am, where I live, what kind of data I want to give away to anybody is up to me, not anybody else. But all of that is pertaining to me. And so, but under the government of Canada, that's protected, right? So we have PIPEDA and we have PETA to protect our data, to protect us, right? To protect us from harm if companies would misuse it, okay? But the problem is that as much as your company can try and protect your data, you are handling the data based on the best information you have. And so the thing is that you're touching really critical information. We call it crown jewels if it's confidential data. So that would be all that PII, for example, or your company's financial records, or obviously anything proprietary. So that is confidential data, crown jewels. So the thing is whatever you're doing in your company, you are handling that, or you have access to that, okay? So that's why you are a target, is because you have something of value, even though you may not realize how valuable it is. It doesn't mean it's not valuable. It is valuable because there's a dark web market out there that wants that data to resell it, okay? So that's what makes it valuable. So what we have here is we have criminals who want it, okay? We have hackers, we have nation state hackers, And we have all sorts of different type of hackers out there that are going to seek and hunt for this data, whatever it takes. And it is their full-time job to do so, okay? So I have a picture of El Chapo here because he is a drug cartel. We all know about drug cartels. They have hit the news like nobody's business over the last few years, and they're getting bigger, they're getting more powerful, and they aren't stopping. And that is because they don't have laws. They follow. They create their own world of you obey what we want or else, right? So they're terrorists, as we know, but they're truly dangerous, right? So we have other types of criminals, they're ransomware gangs, and they're also under the same guise. They're as dangerous as drug cartels. This one gentleman here, Dimitri, he was part of the largest ransomware gang called Lockbit. They're the ransomware gang that targeted London Drugs last year, shut London Drugs down for 10 days. And asked for $25 million so that they could give back London Drugs data. So that's kind of how they negotiate. They're like, we'll steal this, we'll extort you, or else. And the thing is that this gentleman, we finally have a face to the name of that head of that organization. But their crime as a service is not stopped because they haven't found him yet. They just know what he looks like. So there's never really a face to the name of these criminals. Whereas the drug cartel, there's faces to all the names, to all their soldiers and all their footmen. But the thing is at the end of the day, there's no difference between these criminals. They're going to do what they want, how they want it, and they're going to try and get it at whatever cost it takes. And the cost is us. Okay. So they're trying to steal your data and your PII, all of it, your crown jewels, and they're trying to sell it. Okay, their goal, that is their goal. So these criminals, hackers, work full time. They don't sleep at night like us. They don't get off at 5 like us. And they are trying to do everything they can to access your company's data. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at an access crisis, because if a hacker knows if he can get any part of your identity, then they have access to whatever you have access to. And if they have access to whatever you have access to, that means they have access to get into your company. And if they have access to get into your company, that means they have access to your valuable data. And then if they can get your valuable data, all they do is extract that data. And then they can take it, and we call it the dark web, but they put it up for sale. Right? So that happens personally and that happens professionally. And that is all happening every day, all day, so fast that we can't necessarily comprehend how many people they're targeting a day. We track a lot of stats, and every quarter we track them. So for example, right now in the threat landscape, Canada is a really appealing target for data breaches, okay? Because it's driven by a bunch of factors. One is the increase of vulnerability of our sectors, or all of our sectors, and the fact that we're digital, right? A lot of our business is digital. We're no longer paper and pen. So we have 53% of our data is compromised globally, right? Due to these kind of targeted types of breaches. So that's a high number. And it's not going to go down by any means. You're going to be conned regularly. 80% of our new account fraud involves synthetic identities, right? So that happens when, let's say, a criminal opens up a brand new account. They can get a bank credit card, they can get a loan. They have the intentions of abusing it later, because they can take that and they can run up debt, launder money, or commit other crimes. So basically, they're going to just take any data they can and convert it so they can basically create fake information. And they'll take whatever they can so that they can get these fake identities, so they can pass credit checks. They can build a clean financial history over time. And it won't trigger alerts to any organization anywhere because it's a real identity, right? So it makes the real victims a target, because it's happening behind the scenes and you don't even realize it. So it's really more dangerous than your classic identity theft, because basically you're going to have something happen behind the scenes and you're not going to know. And phishing is evolving, and it's not going away either. So when you're looking at phishing, the easiest way to explain it is their goal is to send you a malicious link, one way or another, okay? And the thing is that they're going to scam you by sending you something called malware so that it's going to cause damage to your device or your software in order to gain access to your confidential data. So you don't necessarily have to understand the technicalities behind what malware is or what a vicious link, a malicious link is. But what you need to know is the fact that they're being sent to you every day, and they're sent to you in different communication forms that are meant to do harm to you. Okay. So for example, you have a normal Microsoft sign in like this one. That looks like a possible normal email, but in that has a malicious link, and that malicious link is going to cause damage. And every hacker creates these malicious viruses and this to do a certain job. It's given a job, whatever it is. Again, I could go into detail and talk about this for hours about how they can come in and they could do credential theft. They can go in and go backdoor stealing. They can kind of glean and take all the data from your company. You name it. Just depends on the type of hack they want to do. And you hear it and you see them in the news all the time. So the type of malware doesn't actually matter. It's how to detect what is malware, what is a vicious, malicious link. So this example, when you're looking at your daily risks, over 75% of your target attacks begin with email. So it's no longer a technical issue. It's a human one. Okay. So cyber criminals are going to target people like you. And when you're looking at an email like this, it might look somewhat harmless. But when you're looking at this, maybe some of you can easily detect this going, well, I would never get that from my HR department, or I don't even have an HR department. But at the end of the day, these targeted phishing attacks are going to throw out a net far and wide, kind of the same messages. And all they need is one of you to just be able to take the bait, right? So if you're a new employee at a company, maybe you don't know they don't send this. Within 3 weeks, that is when a new employee starts. That is a real vulnerable time for a new employee. So if you are hiring new employees or are a new employee, or you're going to hire new employees, there's extra training you need to give your employees for this very reason alone, because they are a high target. And why are they a high target? Because one, they broadcast it all over their social network that they're just starting a new job at, BC Utilities or whatever. And then they broadcast it in a way where they tell the position, they say the company, they already know where they live because it's broadcasted. So a hacker doesn't have to do much intel or reconnaissance to know anything about that new employee. And so then they're targeted, and then as vulnerable as they are, because they don't know everyone in the company, they don't know who communicates with them, they don't know what is expected of the communication because they're just new to the company. So they're vulnerable because they're going to respond to this thinking they have to. They are doing their due diligence by being a good employee and going, okay, I should do this because it's an employee survey. So it's really silly tactics like this that are just really simple emails, not complicated most of the time, but they're just targeting one area of vulnerability. And they have all sorts of tactics that create, different avenues of like targeted attacks. This is just one of them. And they're changing all the time. So attackers don't break in, they log in. So when you're looking at credential challenges here, stolen credentials allow attackers to log in as legitimate users. Okay. So they make breaches harder to detect than anyone because they've officially logged in as you. Okay. So 1 in 6 breaches in 2025 involved attackers using AI, including AI crafted phishing. Okay. Because now emails can be perfectly crafted with AI. There's no errors. There's no logos that are off color or wrong fonts. It's perfect, right? They don't have to do much reconnaissance to figure out who works where. And 22% of the breaches use compromised passwords or stolen logins. So when I said that they go in and steal data, then they reuse it and then they go and do a breach elsewhere. Okay, so customer PII is one of the most compromised data types. Okay, and so ransomware is really still high. It's 44% of the breaches, and that's where they require, like if they kidnap the data, and they require money to give back the company's data. So that isn't going away either. They're sophisticated and they're going to continually evolve and craft new methods to be able to target companies like yours, small, medium, and large, in order to be able to access that data, because they know it equals big, big dollars, and they're going to go where the money is. Okay. And then also, when it says the message didn't come by email, well, that's the point. They don't need email. They have so many other methods now. Okay. You're getting data brokers selling your phone number. So for example, you will have entered your data on a forum. Let's say you wanted to become part of a newsletter and they ask for your phone number. They sell your data to a data broker. Look up data brokers. They're culprits to all of this as well. And then boom, you're getting endless SMS attacks. You're getting endless attacks through your collaboration platforms or your social media platforms or your voicemail, voice calls. It's all bypassing traditional email security because they are just as effective. Okay. Email is effective, obviously, but they're also going, well, North Americans talk on the phone. They text all the time. They use all sorts of social media. They use all sorts of IMs. Boom. Perfect avenues to be able to trick anybody because all they have to do is pose as somebody you know, and you're trusting them. Okay. And so what happens is they're going to continue to impersonate trusted staff. That's their goal. So all they have to do is trick you to believe that they are your boss or your colleague, and you share confidential information with that person digitally, whatever it is, because you think it's a trusted colleague, and then you're giving away crown jewels or access to money. All right. So the detection challenge is really hard because it's not really obvious what you can see if it's real, because a lot of it is AI enhanced and everything is so much harder to detect because of that. So it means you, as the target, have to be a little bit more diligent. You have to be a little bit more aware because your phone's not going to detect it's a fake phone call, or your phone isn't going to detect that it's a fake text. You're going to just continually get these incoming texts from these random phone numbers saying things that are like applicable to what you actually do in life, whether it's, your Netflix payment is not going to go through, and click here, phone this number, or your Amazon account is needs updating, click here, call here. So they're going to try all sorts of ways because they know what we do in North America. So we are having to become more aware because we're being inundated with something that looks real, with everything that we see, whatever platform it's on, it all looks real. And when it's coming into you directly, whether it's a text, whether it's an email, whether it's a Facebook IM, it doesn't matter what platform. When you look at these platforms, everything looks real. It only takes a little bit of scrutiny on your part to realize, how do you know it's real? How do you know it's not real, right? So I just want to show you this little clip here. Oh, why did that do that? Oh, I'm sorry. So we're getting texts every day, and they're just simple links like that. And if you're not paying attention, you would think that's for you, that's legit. And before you know it, your life is changed in an instant. And you may know of somebody that's happened to, or maybe it's happened to you. And they come in all different forms. That is just one avenue, and we call that smishing. And so your phone is now an avenue for you to be a target and be really vulnerable. And so it's a matter of, how do you navigate all of these different tactics that are targeting you with malicious intent, right? So I'm going to go through a couple more examples. And so when we're looking at AI has a lot of deep fakes that are coming out because now it's a little bit easier with a lot of free tools. So you can use any AI generator to create any image you want. You can do images, sounds, videos, you name it, right? Maybe some of you are experimenting with that. If you're in marketing, you would have experimented with that. Someone said Canva, so you would be able to have access to that really easy, right? But it also uses deepfake technology to create synthetic corporate personas, right? And imitate existing employees and high-ranking professionals, right? So the audio and the SMS and the video deepfakes, they've already been used extensively to kind of impersonate executives at Fortune 500 companies. So we already know it's happening, and it keeps on getting easier. So AI is evolving, and we are on this train, and it's moving fast. So we got to hold on, right? We got to be ready for what's coming. And so a couple of things that I just want to mention about risks is, AI is amazing. It's going to change our life for the good, for sure. But, it's the same thing when we went from horse and carriage to cars. You had to look at, what are the benefits of using cars? And then when we had cars, we had to look at the benefits of the safety of cars. So like, how long did it take us to get seatbelt laws in place, right? And how long did it take us to put car seats in a car? Like, it took a while, right? Whereas what I want to present to you today is kind of like being ahead of knowing what the risks are so that you can cautiously, but with wisdom, use these tools to your benefit. Okay? Because the thing is, use them. They're for your benefit without a doubt, but just know what to do with them and how to use them to your gain, not to your harm. Okay. So basically what's happening right now is because people don't know, companies aren't helping, companies aren't guiding, companies aren't directing, there's a lot of errors happening, right? So for example, over half of the staff are admitting like they're entering confidential information and company sensitive data into AI systems. Okay. So they may intentionally do that. They may not intentionally do that, but they're doing it. Okay. So they're putting into chat box. Okay. That's not good to put those into chat bots. Okay. 60 to 75% of North American office workers report using tools at work without explicit approval. So that's a troublesome. If you don't have approval and you're using something at the office, that could be problematic, right? So this is a kind of targeting all industries. This isn't just one sector. So everyone is going through this. So you're not alone. So whatever you think you're going through, you're actually, essentially across the board. So you have to think, what is your company doing to navigate that? Then the other thing is I don't know if you've heard of shadow AI. So it's the use of unsanctioned use of AI tools. So for example, employees are pasting internal documents into public tools like ChatGPT. Now, when we say public tools, there's enterprise version of like Copilot, and then there's a public version of Copilot. There's an enterprise version of ChatGPT, and there's a public version of ChatGPT. And what they're saying is the public version of ChatGPT is where the harm is, because your company, if you're using the enterprise version of a Copilot, it's covered and protected in its own tenant. Okay. Basically, it's got its roof. It's like, basically covered and protected so nothing can get out, and they can protect all the data that company uses. But, this would apply to marketing teams where they're using third-party AI tools that haven't been security reviewed or, come under the company's tenant where they're housed in there and protected so that you can put whatever data you want in there, right? If you're using external vendors without that having that protection and being security reviewed, then you're not protecting your company. You're putting your company at risk with the data that could be released, right? So 20% of the breaches are involving shadow AI. So I guess one other question I want to ask you, and if Matt, you could put up this question, is what steps do you take to ensure your login credentials are secure? Do you take 1 or 2 steps? 1, nothing? So Matt, if you put up that, I'd love to see what everyone has for an answer.
Yeah, the poll is live, so just waiting some responses.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yes, they're slowly creeping in here. I got 6 or so I guess I'll start to read those out.
Sounds good.
The first one is MFA.
Yes.
And then we got another multi-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
Keeper password protection. We love that one here at Smart Dolphins. 2 to 3 steps. 2 steps. MFA. 1 password. And 1 authenticator, I'm assuming.
Awesome. 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 Keep them coming in. I mean, the reason I asked this question is because, again, you know, just the same way that when you come home every day and you're getting yourself sorted, making supper for the family, kind of settling in for the night, you lock your door at night. You don't leave it open, and you don't leave it ajar, that's for sure, right? So we want to look at our digital footprint the exact same way. When you're walking in to a software, you're entering it. How are you entering that software? Because basically, it's like you're entering your home. It's going to be full of confidential data, something that's private and personal, and you need to protect it. Whether it's your banking, company banking, or whatever software you're using for the company, you have to protect it. And part of it is the gateway to getting in, right? So your credentials are the gateway to getting in. So there's no way you're going to leave it half open. You're going to just like, or insecure on any level, but yet that's the number 2 cause of data breaches. So we're still vulnerable to that just by not securing the entry point. And we need to secure the entry point. We need to be more diligent with that. So some of you are doing great. Matt, are there a couple other answers?
Yeah, we got quite a few more actually. Continuing on from where we left off, do not include optional personal information in forms.
Excellent.
MFA, Okta, or LastPass.
Excellent.
Do not share passwords.
Excellent.
2FA, another 2-step verification.
Excellent.
Authenticators changing frequently.
Yes.
MFA, never sharing passwords. 2FA. Multi-factor.
Perfect.
I turn off the auto login and saving of login info.
Good.
2SV, use password manager and MFA. Always check email address in message before replying. Password key, no passwords, username, banking information on a sticky note. That's a good one. That's good.
Okay. That's
good. Different passwords for different logins. Use Incogni at home for data broker removal.
Good. And then someone put facial recognition. Excellent. Now you can't use facial recognition for everything, but it is definitely handy. My spouse definitely benefits from that because he just finds logging in is really tough. And thumb recognition is brilliant as well. So you can see that you're using a biometric to log into your credentials. So that is really great. And obviously MFA is really great. And so what we want to emphasize here is like you have to have a mindset where you're going to be the human firewall to everything that you touch digitally. So when we look at passwords, they do still matter, okay? They really do. So we have seen as we track the data that 10 to 12 billion passwords were newly exposed during last year. So that tells us that there's still issues around how we're securing our credentials, username and password in any of our sites that we're using. Again, it's tough because 54% of the employees reuse their passwords across multiple work systems. And it's easy to do so because you're like exhausted by knowing all these passwords. And you think, well, the company should do their part. And the company is doing their part, but we have to do our part. And that's why we can't reuse passwords. So your company could follow some password security protocols, right? So maybe they have a password policy. If you don't know what a good password is, the NIST 800-63B gives you the kind of the protocols. But usually when you're setting up password, they require it inside of the kind of the setup, right? But using a password manager is the easiest thing to do. They're free and they're easy to use, just like we're in a world where we add new apps every week. Whatever it is doesn't matter, but we're trying new apps all the time. This is considered the same thing, but this could be the best thing you could do because it's going to increase your cyber hygiene. You're not going to have to put your passwords on a sticky note. And you don't have to remember 100 of them. You can remember one password, and then that password manager can just help you generate passwords from there on, and you don't have to think about it. And again, how many things do you log into in a given day between the time you wake up and the time you go to bed? When you don't have facial recognition accessible, you have to have a password to even start. You always have to have a password. So either way, you need to up your game and add a password manager to your world so that you don't have to burden your mind with that task, because it's an important one and critical one, actually, and it's somewhat easy. So starting with that could really kind of increase your kind of ease and use of applications throughout your day, first of all. And then, as you had all mentioned, MFA. Basically, don't enter a software without it, because then that's going to stop the hackers in their tracks high percentage of times, because you are verifying it's you going into that financial software. It's you verifying that you're going into that project management software. It's you verifying you're going into that client CRM software, not a hacker. So if you have MFA activated, then you can be rest assured that you're at least going, yeah, I'm verifying. So if you get a prompt when you're not using that software, you just deny it, no matter how many times it comes at you, because if you're not using it, you always deny it. And then you're kind of adding that other layer of security for you and your business and whatever data that is trying to be accessed, okay? And then this is one thing I think is so important. We have to stop believing all communication. We just have to, okay? We have to use proper secure texting apps. So iMessage is secure between iPhones, but not iPhone and Android, okay? So that's not secure, but iPhone to iPhone is secure. If you're using WhatsApp or Signal, those are great, but IMs in Facebook, not secure. Instagram, not secure. ChatGPT, no. And what else? All of these other little apps that we use that your kids are using Roblox, no, not secure. None of those are secure. So you have to understand there's just deepfakes everywhere, especially in all the games that are out there. There's 100% deepfakes in there, and really dangerous, actually, when you're looking at the online gaming world. And so when you have a company process, follow that communication process. So if there is a requirement of a vendor change, follow that process to a T, because that's where these hackers can come circumvent, inject themselves in between your process and trick you. I've seen it, it happens. And even though you might think it doesn't happen to you, it does happen, and they're really good at it. Okay. And you can't ask how they did this. I kind of explained already how they did it. That's how they will continue to do it, right? You just don't know where they're going to go with that information. And getting in between your company processes and your communication is one way. Okay. So a couple of rules to give you about AI right now. Again, I'm going to say right now, because maybe next month this could change, okay? But just think of it this way. Never put this into AI. Customer PII, financial information or contracts, source codes or proprietary IPs, and internal credentials or system details, okay? Never. Rule number 2, if you wouldn't email it outside the company, don't put it into AI. Just that simple, okay? That could change, but just think of it that way, okay? Because we live in this world where there's so many different things that we use AI for. We think it's, maybe our guard goes down and we think, oh, we can put this in there, it'd be fine. Our AI is getting better. They just showed us that they're doing this and this and they're improving it. No. Never believe that, because the public AI especially is not secure one bit, okay? Rule number 3. Pick one approved AI tool in your company and make it easy to access. So if you have a company that has one or two, maybe you need to all sit at the table and decide which one it is going to be, so everyone across the board can use it, and then everyone can gain the same knowledge and follow the same processes and same protocols, right? So basically, the message should be, use this one for work. Don't ever use personal AI tools for company data. Like, just, there has to be some similar messaging across the board, so everyone on your team and all your departments are doing the same thing, and it can be the same whether you add an AI policy so everyone knows, and then you can easily adapt that and follow it. Instead of going, oh, we don't know, we don't apply it, it doesn't matter. All of it does matter because, like I just showed you earlier, people are using AI at work all the time. Maybe they're just all using different tools, but they're using their personal access AI, generative AI tool, okay? So you have to make sure you don't use tools that train on your inputs. Okay, they prefer tools that offer basic admin controls and that they have clear data handling policies, okay? Because that's what you're in trouble for if you're inputting a lot of data, just goes to AI and it's lost for good. It's theirs and they get to have it for training and using. And that's why there's so many issues with copyright issues with books. Forget about all the imaging issues and the movie issues, but even just with books, okay? Rule number 4, add one additional verification layer, okay? So what we're finding here is it's really tricky to verify or know who's who here. So what you need to do is, because we're working so digitally with everyone, and maybe let's say you worked with a vendor and you met with them in person before, but now you're only working with them digitally. Let's say you still have to do changes with a vendor. Make sure you have a verification layer set up even after the fact, so that when they do make changes, it's still them that you're talking to, okay? Because you'll never know it's not unless you have this in place. Because unless you go to their office, shake their hand and say, we agree, how do you know it's them? Right? Anyone can be anyone's email, anyone can be anyone's voice, anyone can be anyone's text message, phone call. So if you can't prove it, then you have to find a way to prove it, okay? So whatever it is. And when it comes to onboarding new employees, the same thing has to be in place, because again, you have to protect your company and what you're giving away and who you're trying to hire, right? So whether you do live selfies or just anything, your company, there's lots of options out there for your company to choose what you can use with the resources you have available, but to make it just one of your check boxes. So it's not cumbersome. It's not a whole new process. It's just another step that you're adding just to make sure your whole team follows that process. So you can go, we've done our due diligence. We're making sure that's a live human on the other end. It's not a hacker or a scammer of any sort, okay? So there's all different methods. I just gave you a few choices here. One-time ID verification, address or phone validation using trusted third-party data, you name it, whatever's easiest for you. But we are in a day and time now where we actually have to do that. And it's not that you don't want to trust the person on the other end of the side of the communication channel. It's just you basically have to protect your side. And that's all that matters, okay? And it's maybe also because we have been too trusting, and that's why criminals are just hijacking us left, right, and center, because they know how easy we are to be conned, okay? And then to pivot a little bit, when you're out and about, this is another vulnerability for most people. So, these are just some best practices for you to apply, and that is simple as this. When you're out, airport, hotel, coffee shop, anywhere with free Wi-Fi, because that is becoming the thing, that you can get free Wi-Fi literally at your gym, you name it, anywhere. Fine, use it, no problem. But do not use it when you're doing anything with confidential information. Don't use it for banking. Don't use it for shopping. Don't use it for company work. None of the above. If you're going to do any of that, do it at your home where you're on your own system and you're protected, unless you have a VPN, okay? Virtual private network. So some of you may have that. Then you can use that in a Wi-Fi environment and you'll be fine. If you don't have that, then just think before you go. So if you have to transfer some money before you go on your trip, do that before. Don't do it while you're at the airport when you go, oh, I forgot I had to transfer that money. It's the most dangerous thing. You're vulnerable there. And so finally, just to be able to cover off on kind of some of the key tips to be able to take away before we go to Q&A, you have to remember this is going to be daily. So whatever you apply should be daily, okay? So once you implement your password manager, you're using it daily. So if you don't have one yet, start with 5 accounts. Look up the top password manager of 2025, and then choose that one. Okay. Then implement your 5 critical accounts and just get familiar with it. Use that until you're comfortable with it, and then adapt and add more passwords. You don't have to be like an expert using it, and you aren't going to have to be a cybersecurity expert for any of these things. These are kind of like being a little bit more just kind of proactive to protect you in your day-to-day, but you don't have to basically be an expert using this. Then when it comes to all your critical accounts, make sure MFA is enabled. Okay, so financial software, project management software, CRM software, your social media accounts, whatever that you're using, especially for work, MFA is used 100% of the time. Okay, and especially when you're not in the office, when you are away and you are going to be on the road, you have to make sure that you're protecting your accounts like Fort Knox. Okay. And then when it comes to your incoming messages, text, email, IMs, you name it, verify the sender, verify the link, hover over the link. If it doesn't look real, delete the email. If the email looks fake, delete the email. If the incoming message looks fake, delete the email. If the incoming message doesn't make sense because you don't communicate that way with your team member or your friend or your spouse or anyone that where you, okay, this is looking like it's fake, delete it. That's all you have to do. Okay. Some of your companies may ask you to report it. They might have a report phishing icon in your inbox. Take it, run with it, do it. But otherwise, all you have to do is delete it. You don't have to respond. And it's okay if you open up the email to read it. That's not harmful. I get that asked a lot. They think it's dangerous to open up a suspicious email. No, it's what you do with it once you open it. Okay. So you're fine opening it. You're fine reading it. That's what you should do. Verify it's real, then respond. But if you're never sure, if there's any point in time you're not sure, then that's where you take a moment to go verify it through a source that is trusted. And that is, again, takes a couple minutes. But if it means you saving your company a few $1,000s from a mismanaged direction of a vendor cheating you through a scam and you thought it was a real vendor and it wasn't, this is where your boss is going to really be grateful that you verified, because that's as simple as it can happen in a matter of minutes. So just verify in a trusted way and follow those AI input rules, and that will spare you the headache of giving away the crown jewels to AI and the world. And then when it comes to AI as well, I would recommend that you all create a safe code. So maybe you have a company-wide safe code where it is one simple word, whatever you want it to be. But if you're getting a call and it's demanding some information that you go, why is he asking for me? Why is he asking for these financial records at 5 o'clock when this never happens? Or you think it's a little strange, but you feel like, what do? You don't know. There could be all sorts of incoming calls. Like I got one for Amazon. I could handle it, but it made me really mad because I was like, for the love of Amazon asking for my code. Again, it's ridiculous what happens out there, but all you have to do, if you have an incoming call regarding anything with your family or anything with your work, 2 separate codes, one for your family, one for your work. Then you can at least, if you're not sure, just go, hey, what's our code? And they'll say, oh, never mind, don't worry about it. Just tell me what this is or give this to me. And then you just can hang up, okay? You don't have to be rude. You don't have to put them in their place because trust me, they're criminals. They don't care how you feel, but you need to protect you, okay? And especially with your family, I have an incoming text image, little emoji we share to verify each other, and we have a word. So I do both because if I ever doubt it, I just send the emoji. They send me their approved emoji back, like we're our agreed emoji, and then we're good. But it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does. I remember my son called me. Sorry, he texted me about some money. He wanted some money. He's a kid. I'm sure you all go through this with your kids. They want money. And I was like, you can't call me, you can't text me about money ever. And that's one of the rules. So I said, you have to call me. So he called me and he was like, I'm sorry, Mom, I forgot. I just forgot that I wasn't supposed to do that. But that's because, again, that's the one sure thing of how scams happen is they happen over text, right? So even our kids can innocently just do something and it just makes you go on guard. But luckily it was not a big deal. I was just like, okay, let's just make sure we don't do that because it's just like, I'm so paranoid all the time. So my kids understand that. And so they kind of follow the guidelines so that we can have some easy communication and I don't get tricked by any of these scammers because I'm getting all these texts, hi mom, and it's not my son. It's a texter because my son doesn't say mom. He calls me with another nickname, right? So these things where you can just know it's not real just by some of the communication tactics that are used. So anyway, all of that to say, you'll use your critical judgment on this. You'll be a little bit more kind of hyper vigilant and follow some of these protocols, and you'll really spare yourself a lot of headaches and a lot of concerns around cyber incidences in your life and in your work world. So that concludes everything I wanted to cover today.